The Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, O Lord. Now Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and was quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." When he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. But the leader of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, kept saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be cured, and not on the Sabbath day." But the Lord answered him and said, "You hypocrites! Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or donkey from the manger and lead it to water? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" When he said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things being done by him. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. I offer this morning just a brief content note about the sermon. At one point, there's an illustration that does make reference to suicide and mental illness, which I acknowledge can be a sensitive and triggering subject for some. And so if that is you and you need to take a break and get up and leave the space for a time, please do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And if there is anything that I can do, if you would like someone to talk to following the service, I am available for that as well. No one likes to be ignored, made to feel unimportant, or worse, invisible. This woman, unnamed, as so often women are in Scripture, knew this feeling all too well, and probably better than most. Described only as having a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years, making her unable to stand up straight. Nothing more is known about this woman, her lack even of a name, underscoring her invisibility. Judged for her disability in a society that often ascribes such things to divine judgments. Well, she must have done something wrong, something to deserve this, they said. And ignored for being a woman in a heavily patriarchal culture that devalued her voice and her perspective. Enduring chronic pain that modern commentators have suggested to be ankylosing spondylitis, a type of arthritis that affects the spine and causes severe stiffness, inflammation, fatigue, and acute pain, among other things, which, while not curable, can be managed by the advances of modern medicine, none of which, of course, would have been available to this woman. She endured 2 types of pain, one commentary summarizes: the intense psychological pain of being rendered invisible, and the tortuous physical pain of having a debilitating condition. We do not know whether she suffered silently or loudly, but we do know that she suffered greatly. She had no reason to expect anyone to notice her, least of all Jesus, a total stranger who probably had other more important things to do. She had every reason to expect that she would keep on living the next 18 years, much like the last, rendered invisible by the pain she carried in her body and the pain of being ignored. Jesus heals a crippled woman, as my own Bible, and maybe yours, titles this story. But you know by now how I feel about those made-up titles, absent as they are from the original Greek. Still, if I had to assign a title to this story, I might suggest Jesus sees a woman in pain. It is a remarkable thing that even before this woman is cured, even before she is able to stand up straight for the first time in 18 years, Jesus sees her when no one else even notices her, except as maybe a tripping hazard or a nuisance when they would bump into her, because of course she's obviously the one not paying attention. Never mind the fact that her condition made it quite impossible for her to do just that. Jesus sees her, calls her over, speaks to her, centers one who has been pushed aside, and he lays his hands on her. There is power in physical touch like that. And he frees her from her invisibility. The healing act is so much more than the ability to stand upright, though that had to feel incredible. It is the act of being seen and recognized instead of being talked about at best and at worst ignored. And in so doing, Jesus sets an example for us to see those who have been pushed aside, to call to them, to speak to them and not merely about them, to center and embrace their experience, to see our siblings who suffer, to hear them when they cry out, to take notice of them, to meet them with compassion and solidarity. Who is crying out to be seen in our midst? Who is easy for us to ignore and render invisible? I never expected my casual summer reading to take me on a side quest into the much darker world of The Haunting of Hill House. First, the 1959 Gothic horror novel by American author Shirley Jackson. Has anyone read it? And then the more recent 2018 Netflix miniseries, loosely based on Jackson's book. Both book and miniseries, which both admittedly have their share of jump scares, the latter especially, still defy the typical trappings of horror. Beyond just another scary movie, they each in their own way deal with the very real horror of what it means to be haunted by trauma and mental illness. It is through the lens of the character of Eleanor, present in different ways in both Jackson's novel and the Netflix adaptation, that we experience this most acutely. In the miniseries, Eleanor, or Nell as she is most often called, is one of the youngest of the 5 Crane siblings, and one of the most affected by what she and her family experienced while they lived in Hill House. Never fully recovering well into adulthood, the lingering trauma of which tragically leads her to take her own life. In one particularly poignant scene towards the middle of the series, alternating between a flashback to her childhood in Hill House and the present with her adult siblings gathered for her funeral, the younger Nell goes missing during a storm that knocks out power to the entire house. By the end of the storm, Nell reappears in the very place where she went missing. And as her family surrounds and embraces her, an emotional Nell tells them, pleads with them, I was here. I was right here. I was right here, and I was screaming and shouting, and none of you could see me. Why couldn't you see me? I was right here the whole time, the younger Nell's voice continues as the scene switches back to the present in the funeral home. And none of you could see me. Who is crying out to be seen in our midst? Who is easy for us to ignore and render invisible? To everyone who has been pushed aside, whose cries to be seen have gone unheard, Jesus sees you. To everyone who suffers under the weight of being rendered invisible, whether by trauma, disability, age, gender, or illness, Jesus sees you. To everyone who has been ignored or made to feel insignificant or unworthy, Jesus sees you. Jesus sees you. Jesus sees you. Jesus sees you, calls to you and speaks your name, reaches out his hands to you and frees you to live fully, without fear or shame or apology, embraced by the unfailing love of God, who cares deeply for you.